Hi, this is Dr. Stephanie Wautier, and I'm the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. This is not a health how-to, but rather a conversation with some amazing people I've had the pleasure of being with on my journey of life. Think of it more like Tuesdays with Maury, a fireside chat, or chicken soup for the soul. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy this conversation with a chiropractor. Deb, thank you so much for being on Conversations with a Chiropractor.
I'm excited to be here.
So I am going to jump right in to this most recent, let's just call it health crisis. So May of 2022, you come for a regular adjustment and you tell me I am numb from the waist down. And as a chiropractor, we know that sciatica or lumbar radiculopathy, it's usually on one side of your body, not both sides. It usually follows a pattern if someone drew a line. So generalized numbness is very much an emergency. And I said, Deb, please go to the ER.
And I was frightened because I had gotten COVID at the beginning of that month and developed a horrible cough. And with that, I thought that I had popped a rib out. I've done that before in the past. You've adjusted that. You've made that correct for me. But when we had gone for brunch, I noticed that my feet were cold and were starting to get numb, and it progressed in that week. So when you saw me, you scared the socks off of me to say I needed to get to the ER, but I also trusted that's where I needed to be. So the ER here in town got me right in. They drew some blood. They did a CAT scan, and they ruled out a bunch of stuff. They ruled out blood clots. They ruled out Lyme disease, they ruled out syphilis, they ruled out diabetes, but they didn't know what was going on, so they referred me or said that I need to see the neurologist and sent me on my way with the thought that if it gets any worse, come back. So I immediately called the neurology department. They didn't know if they were even taking any new patients here in town, but they'd be in touch. That I said, I have notes coming from the ER that it's been emergency situation.
Yes.
Seen. A week went by and I hadn't heard from them and I got worse. So I went back to the ER, different ER doctor. This time they did a neck MRI. They did another blood draw. They were leaning toward Guillain-Barré because of the neuropathy and the myelopathy. And at this point, I also started to develop Lhermitte's syndrome or Lhermitte's sign, where when you bring your chin to your chest, it gets a jolt, electrical impulses all the way out through the fingers, through the torso, and through the feet. And that was frightening. And again, he excused me, said, you need to see the neurology department. Called again. They said, we'll have the doctor review the notes. And at that point, I started the process of the patient intake at Mayo.
Basically, you decided yourself that you were going to send yourself to Mayo.
I wasn't going to be, I was going to be my best advocate. I was not going to wait for this medical professional to finally get around to calling me to be seen.
Especially when this is a literal emergent situation that is progressing.
And progressing rapidly. That Sunday, my husband put me in the car. We drove to Mayo, even though I didn't have an appointment to Mayo. We presented at the ER there. And within a day, I was seen by the neurology department at Mayo. They were concerned. They thought maybe it was a spinal impingement. Maybe there was something else going on that they were going to, they did a bunch of other tests. Neurostim, they drew blood, did another CAT scan, did another MRI, thinking that they would have to do spinal surgery, emergency open spinal surgery. And when all those tests kept coming back inconclusive or not fitting those norms, my neurologist at Mayo conferred with the neuroimmunologist. And the neuroimmunologist asked for my history. And yes, I'd had COVID 3 times. Yes, this neuroimmunologist had been seeing patients like me in his clinic for the past year. Maybe not to the severity, but there was a pattern that he was concerned about. So the consult that they had, and this was even after they did the spinal tap, which if you've ever had a spinal tap, that came back all normal. The fluids were normal. There wasn't anything, no disease in there. And even the neurostim, where they super glue electrodes to your scalp and other parts of your body, and then they just electronically stimulate different. I had readings that weren't normal anything. So at this point, I'm numb from the waist down. I'm in a wheelchair. I have no stamina. I have no strength.
Did you at that time lose bowel and bladder
I did.
control?
I did. And that was a big concern for me because I was 59 years old and I did not want to be in a Depends for the rest of my life.
Oh, of course, especially when you were normal a month prior. Like
Correct.
you
That
had
is correct.
no symptoms a month prior.
That is correct. So Mayo decided that they were going to get very aggressive and had us go back there again. It's an 8 hours on the road, one way to get there, but it's top-notch care. I have the utmost confidence and faith in that facility. They all talk to each other. They all confer. They're all on the same page. And knowing that we come from a far distance, they have always tried to put all of my appointments together all at once. So they started a 5-day regimen of a 15-minute steroid drip. And I started to get tingling back in my feet. And Dr. Alskog, my neurologist, said we're on the right track.
So from completely numb to getting a little bit of a tingling sensation.
It was promising.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there was hope. His description to me was it was undetermined transverse myelitis. So the myelin sheets on the end of my nerves were all Swiss cheesed. So there was a disconnect. And my feet weren't giving correct information to my brain. It felt, in the wintertime when you have boots on and sometimes your socks roll down inside your boot, that's what the bottoms of my feet felt like.
Wow.
And my proprioception was gone. I couldn't go up and down stairs because I couldn't feel the end of the tread. So Which
is very dangerous because you could fall, you could trip. When you don't have that awareness of your body in space, it's very dangerous.
Exactly. With the steroid treatment, that showed promise. My neurologist and neuroimmunologist both asked if I could get infusion treatment up here. And I prayed. I had a lot of people praying for me for this whole entire episodes because it was so unusual because I went from very active to very debilitated. I know the power of prayer works. I know that the power of prayer put the right medical professionals in my path to help me along this journey. And I was able to get into the infusion center here in the end of June. So I had 11 weeks, once a week, 1,000 milligrams of a methylprednisolone drip, a 90-minute drip.
Oh my gosh.
And thank goodness for prayer because I was not, when they talk about steroid rage, it's real.
Oh yeah. Most people might be on like 10 milligrams to 60 milligrams if they're having acute COPD or something like that, or like an pneumonia or bronchitis. So tell me that dosage again.
1,000 milligrams of methylprednisolone in a 90-minute drip.
In 90 minutes.
Yep.
So you have this steroid pumping through your system.
Coursing through my veins.
Which is a significant anti-inflammatory.
But,
yes.
I had night sweats. I was irritable. I couldn't eat. I had a blue tinge. Every time I was done, I felt like I had blue tinge sunglasses on. My mouth felt like I had a bowl of Captain Crunch cereal. You know how it gets all kind of
cut
shredded?
up?
It wasn't shredded, but it felt that way. But I knew that we were making progress because every day that I would go in, there was more of feeling coming back from the waist down. There was tingling and even a little bit of pain, which is good because I couldn't feel anything. Every time I'd go into the Mayo, they'd ask, what's your level of pain today? And it's like 0. Then that's the problem. I wasn't feeling anything. One of my biggest lessons, and I know that it was a God-given test, is I learned humility. Not only did I need help, I needed to ask for help, and I needed to receive the help. I'm thankful. I'm so grateful that I have such a great support system and a husband and cousins that close and friends and family from church who stepped in and could make that happen.
Because anyone who knows you, and just talking a little bit, you are a go-getter, like you are the epitome of Sisu. You've always been the one to do for others.
Absolutely.
Every job you've ever had is in the service industry.
Correct.
You are a server, you are a doer, you're going to get her done.
Yep.
And for you not be able to even feel your own body.
I was humbled by the experience, but I also trusted that God had it. I'm a walking miracle.
You are a walking miracle.
And I trust that the power of prayer, I still have friends and family that pray for me every day because who knows? I could relapse. I could backslide. I am now immunocompromised. I have to watch certain places that I go to or certain things that I do to try to mitigate putting myself in that kind of harm. But yeah, the steroid treatments were amazing. They finally got to the point that I could go back to Mayo. They videotaped me. They had the neurology department had videotaped me prior to coming up for steroid treatments. They brought me back to videotape me again. My gait was still off. My stamina was weird. I was walking with the cane, but there was progress. And then they recommended physical therapy. And physical therapy changed everything. And not only the steroids arrested the progression, but the physical therapy allowed my miraculous body to rebuild those synapses.
Yeah.
But I had to learn the simplest basic movements again. And again, I'm the go-getter, I'm the sisu. And it's like, what do you mean I can't stand in the shower, close my eyes to rinse my hair? I would tip over because my proprioception was totally gone. I had to learn how to go up and down stairs again. I had to learn to stand on one foot.
And you know what is really such a miracle about your progress? So I'm very well acquainted with multiple sclerosis. My mom was diagnosed when I was 10. And in that circumstance, the myelin sheath is like scarred. And that sensation and or motor control never returns. And so in your circumstance, you talked about how that myelin sheath was like Swiss cheese. But what an absolute miracle that you were able to heal from that you came back from that your body even had the ability to relearn how to walk, and that you had, I'm going to assume, I don't know, I'm not an expert in this condition, but that neurologically you were healed, right?
Exactly. When Dr. Piddock, my neuroimmunologist at Mayo, told me that we're going to try the steroids and then physical therapy, but I have to tell you, what I'm seeing is some people never get better and some people take so long time. And I said, stop right there. That's not in my vocabulary. Tell me what I have to do, where I have to go, and who I have to see, because that I'm not buying into that. So the biggest challenge, and I'm so incredibly grateful and thankful that the physical therapy clinic that I found had a pelvic floor therapy, two specialists there. And that's what we started with. And we were able to, with therapy and a medical device, we're able to get my bladder, my bowels, and that other area, all those muscles back working again. And that was huge.
Yes.
That was a confidence builder. It was so promising that we had turned the corner.
Yeah.
So
how are you going to go for a walk or go to church or
kayaking or camping?
When you have that loss of course, it was scary not to be able to feel things and not to be able to, but that can create somebody to be homebound.
Absolutely. It absolutely could have been paralyzing to a lot of people, probably. I did the work. I did the physical therapy every day. I'd go twice a week, and every day at home I'd do the exercises. And every time I would return, Joe, my main PT guy, was like, oh my gosh, Deb, you've made leaps and bounds. And I said, I'm doing the exercises that you told me I needed to do. And he said, most people don't. And I said, I'm not most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the hydrotherapy in the pool was the last part of my physical therapy. And that absolutely brought muscle memory back, because I could walk on the treadmill in the pool. I could walk 3 miles in the pool.
Wow.
So in the water.
Yep.
In the water. So it, as Joe explained, you're not just walking forward, but there's resistance forward and backward. So I was using all those muscles and retraining the body to give the brain the signals that this is how we're going to work. And they found another path around those Swiss cheesed areas. I've never experienced, I know some people with MS or even Guillain-Barré sometimes have the stabbing, burning, itching feet, extremities. I didn't have that. I didn't have anything.
Just numbness. Yeah.
So that's all come back. I'm not 100%. I still get a little fatigued, but I'm back on the bike again. We're hiking again. We're kayaking again. We're camping a little bit. And I know that even when my docs down at Mayo asked, tell us what you've been doing, and I kept a log. Every day I would log, did I have a bowel movement? Did I have to take a pain med? Am I doing my PT? And the number one, I said, it's the power of prayer and trusting that the right medical professionals would be put in my path, you included, to direct me.
And even to go way back to the beginning of your journey, when you're basically waiting for a local neurologist to get a hold of you, I'm going to call it a knowing or an urging.
Absolutely.
And
I did eventually get a call from the neurology department 2.5 months later. Oh, we have an opening for you.
Wow.
Thank you, but no thank you. I've been able to get care outside of the area. Mayo has continued to treat me. They continue to follow my progress. I am part of a long haul COVID research study that all 3 Mayo campuses in the United States are conducting. And so I go back for follow-ups. They draw blood, they mark my progression. And I think I'm probably one of those little notes in their research, like that little Sisu Finn girl up in the UP.
Right.
She's
She
making
conquered it.
incredible strides. And this is what she's been doing. I did have some massage therapy and some cupping in between. I had some acupuncture. Changed the diet as far as a lot of inflammatory foods. I trusted that I could ask for that kind of guidance, and I adhered to it because, again, I wasn't going to be 61 years old, and it depends for the rest of my life, homebound, not being able to enjoy this incredibly active life that I've had and have led.
Yeah. I think you knew that you were going to do everything in your power to make it happen.
And I think I know that I was challenged with this condition because of who I am and my faith, and that I can be an example to others to give them the hope. So now Dr. Piddock probably has a different conversation with patients that present to him now to say what we had been finding was, but there's this little Youper girl who has done everything that we recommended. She did the work and she's turned it around.
And you did things in every arena of your life.
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny though, last year we had taken the bikes when we had gone camping, and because Bernie and I will get on the bikes and from the campsite, we'll go bike many miles sometimes. When they say it's like riding a bike, it's really not. My balance was still not quite right and my stamina wasn't quite there, but I made the attempt and not as comfortable, or I wasn't as confident as I wanted to be on the bike, but I knew that I could do it. This spring, we treated ourselves to e-bikes. So last night we went for almost a 9-mile bike ride.
Oh my gosh.
And I never would have thought 2 years ago in a wheelchair that I would be taking a 9-mile bike ride.
Yeah. So this disease that you had is all related to long COVID. That's what they're tying it together.
That's what the study is, that what they're finding at Mayo is vaccinated and non-vaccinated patients who have contracted COVID, have suffered with COVID. And when I got the COVID, it was a bad cold. And then I had the really bad cough. But what they're finding is that they're studying why some people's bodies, autoimmune, just absolutely goes haywire and starts to attack itself. Now that they have these modalities and they can recommend, have you tried massage therapy? Have you tried cupping? Have you tried chiropractic care? Have you tried acupuncture? In addition to the steroids, which are horrible. And I'm still suffering from the consequences of the steroids. I ended up having to go back to Mayo because I'm losing sight in my right eye.
Really?
Not losing sight so much as I don't have focus.
Interesting.
So I've had a cataract for 15 years. But last year, coming back from the Mayo after one of our appointments, I realized I couldn't see street signs. Bernie was driving, but I couldn't read street signs. And that was a little scary to me because I could drive without my glasses on. So went to the eye doctor and he ran the tests and he said the optic nerve looks good, but he explained that sometimes when they do the spinal tap that they change the spinal fluid pressure. Sometimes it changes the optic nerve pressure. So he wondered if that was what it was going on. He said, your cataract is growing a little bit, enough that we need to go ahead and change your prescription. So we did. 6 months later, I was back in and it was another 4 clicks. That was a little nervous to me. I reported to Mayo and they said, you probably want to see an ophthalmologist. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. They said, would you like to come here? And I said, yes, please. Was able to see Dr. Sella down there. She's the lead cataract surgeon at Mayo. And she, sure enough, ran the tests and did all the things and said, yeah, you probably need to take that out. We'll put a new lens in. And she said steroids sometimes can exaggerate or cause a cataract to grow quicker. And I said, that wasn't one of the side effects if I was told I didn't hear it. And she said, they were just trying to make sure you could walk again.
Right.
Let's arrest the degradation of the nerves. Let's deal with the cataract later. And I understood that in hindsight, but I probably should have, and they might have told me. I just may not have heard it. So
when you're in that stressful situation and it's like life or death or movement or no movement.
Exactly.
And they say statistically, I think in a very stressful doctor appointment, you maybe retain 30% of what is said.
And that's all the more reason to bring someone with you.
Yes.
Bernie was there, but I don't think Bernie heard that either. So anyway, I'm getting it taken care of in October, and
Awesome.
it's still part of all those records. And now they can say with patients, we had this again, this gal up in the UP who is well on her way to recovery, but the one thing that she's had to address is cataract that grew faster.
And
So
they don't have any concerns or anything with surgeries moving forward?
no, I had surgery on my foot. I suffered with arthritis and a really bad bunion on my right foot for years, and I couldn't get that addressed amidst all of those other challenges that I had. So when I was finally well enough, I went back to Mayo, and the orthopedic surgeon went ahead and took care of that. And the doc was funny because he said he sent his associate or his intern in first, ran all the tests, asked all the questions, and then he came in, and Dr. Turner said, Deb, if I didn't know any better, to read your chart and everything that you've gone through in the last year and to see you sitting here in my office, he said, I would think that you're the wrong person. I have the wrong medical history.
Oh my gosh.
He even said, so whatever you're doing, keep doing. And I said, prayer, Mayo Clinic, and doing the work that has been prescribed to me. And he said, you're a great candidate for surgery. And they took out, there was no cartilage left. They took out as much arthritis as they could, and then they took care of the bunions. Even then, he says, it's going to be maybe a year or more before you feel normal. And 6 months later, I went back for a checkup. He said, I don't know what you're doing, but you have progressed so much farther than a lot of my patients, even younger patients, skinnier patients, patients that aren't challenged with being autoimmune things.
Long COVID.
Exactly. So he said,
wow.
Yeah, he said, he was pretty funny. He said, it was lovely to meet you, but I hope I never see you again.
Oh, that's a nice thing when
a medical doctor could say.
When a surgeon says that, it's very lovely. Yeah.
Yes. It's been a challenge. And again, I'm so grateful that I've had the support. People were literally coming out of the woodwork. How can we help? What can we do for you? And again, I'm the doer. I'm the doer. I'm the helper. I'm the baker. I'm the shopper. I'll come over, do your laundry, whatever. I've learned
to accept.
Absolutely.
Accept help, accept gifts, maybe accept love, accept prayers.
Absolutely. And accept the circumstances that it's not my timing. It's God's timing, and not everything has to be done today. And again, that was a lesson that I needed to slow down, a lot of self-care, a lot of introspection. And I'm just grateful, absolutely just so grateful that I have the right support system, family, friends, and medical staff to be able to have helped me. And my brother and I actually had a conversation on one of the trips. We were coming back from Mayo, and Kev asked how things were going. And I said, thank goodness for insurance.
Oop. Yeah.
And Kev's point to me was, what would people do? What do people do when they don't have insurance? They wait for that call 2.5 months later.
Yeah.
And maybe are near death by then, or have degraded so incredibly horribly that there wouldn't be an easy way to come back again to rebound, or they don't get care at all.
Yeah.
Or they're afraid to even go because they don't want to get into financial debt. And the burden of.
It really is, when you have this life-threatening event, it is really the rubber hitting the road. I do want to say there are some people, maybe even people that are a little bit older than you and I, who they're just going to sit and wait for that phone call.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they wouldn't have that audacity, tenaciousness. They wouldn't go to Mayo themselves. They wouldn't take that into their own hands. They would wait for that call.
Because the doctor said, we'll get you in. And I also knew, maybe because I'm stubborn or maybe because I'm the little Finnish girl, but I knew that wasn't an option for me. It wasn't a viable option.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it was emergent.
Yes.
And I knew that I had to start somewhere, and it wasn't up here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been an incredible journey. You've seen me go from a cane to.
Oh, Deb,
skipping in here.
Yeah, I've been one of the people praying for you because
Absolutely.
There were so many moments when it was like, they think it's this, they think it's that, they don't think it's this, they think it's that.
No, I trusted the power of prayer, and I trusted that those doctors were going to get to the bottom of it. It may take a long time. In my case, it took 6 or 7 months to realize that there was a modality to arrest and then reverse the progression. But I never once lost hope. Never once.
That in and of itself is spectacular. And perhaps that is why you did so well and you recovered so well. Because I can see many people who've lost hope, who've been in the pits of despair.
And those never even entered into my realm of thinking or my prayer, because I knew that there was a reason. And in the middle of it, it wasn't very fun.
Yeah.
And poor Bernie would go out to the garage every day I got my infusions, because I was not pleasant to be around. And we knew what it was. He knew I wasn't being personal about it. I knew that I wasn't me under that influence, but we also knew that we gave each other grace and we gave each other space.
And that is amazing.
That
That's
we could
truly
understand
amazing
that.
in that marriage relationship, for somebody not to to know that they're not being taken out on, that it's just the
It
medicine.
wasn't personal.
It's the circumstances. Hang in there.
Yes.
And for him not to retaliate, really.
For us to be, this is both of our second marriages, and we will have been married 7 years now in 2 weeks. But we've learned a lot of things and how to make my way in the world and make my way with another human being. And we've learned things together, he and I. So I think that just that understanding that there have been a couple of times things have come out sideways when I was challenged with this health scare, and we can both step back and go, wait a minute. Is this an old tape that's running from a previous relationship, or can we just slow the roll and let's just go ahead and talk about it? And more often than not, we pray about it. And then there's the forgiveness and the resolution. But the grace for the space was huge. And he still wanted me to be able to enjoy getting out. Like, we had a family reunion that he had to load the camper up. He had to do the grocery shopping. He had to make the bed in there. He had to hook it all up. He had to set it all up. And that's usually my job. And I couldn't. And it was hard for me at first. And he says, no, we're doing this. Tell me where I need to go and what I need to do. And I was uncomfortable with that because, again, what I do.
Yeah.
So that was a great learning moment for us too. And just to know that he was just there, support and love on me, and make sure that I still had some semblance of being able to be active and being able to be with people.
What an amazing testimony of a great partner.
Absolutely.
Because there are people who get caregiver fatigue, even if they've had a person who's just maybe recovering from like a simple surgery. And for him to be on this journey with you in this unknowing space, and then for him to just be that persistent, loving,
very loving,
like, we're going to do
and
this.
He was very gentle to me, which is great, because it could have been very different. Circumstances and reactions instead of interactions could have been very different. So I just, if that can be an example to those out there that are struggling with a challenge, it wasn't life or death, but it certainly felt life-changing.
Yeah.
Life-altering.
Oh, 100%. And it really, at that beginning point, when no one knew, when you didn't have a diagnosis and 2 trips to the ER with no answers, that is life or death. That is when you're in that crisis moment. Deb, reflecting, you've said that humility is something that you've learned. We're talking about even those moments of that beautiful interaction between you and Bernie. It's amazing to me that you've never lost hope, that you never felt in the pit of despair. And so that speaks volumes about your faith even before this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Bernie and I actually had been single for several years, more than 10 years, I don't think quite 15. And I had moved back from Montana in 2013. So my baby went off to college and I came home. I'm a Uber and I wanted to come home. And the first year or two I was here, I was seeking, open to another relationship, perhaps another marriage, or at least a partner, and was not. Prospects were slim.
Yeah.
And
I think we all know that in the UP.
And I was not willing to compromise, and I was not willing to settle for anything less that would be honorable to me. So I'd gone back to Montana for a niece's graduation, and coming back, I outran a tornado in North Dakota.
Oh my gosh.
And I had this little, I call it a come into Jesus moment. All right, God, send me a godly man, or I'm going back to Montana, because obviously I'm not finding what I want in Michigan and what I deserve and what I've been praying for. And a week later, Bernie and I met.
Wow.
And he is the answer to that prayer. It's been a remarkable partnership.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, the title of this podcast could really be like faith and answered prayers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like in the midst of, for our current state, like in the last 2 years, in the midst of this health crisis, that's a kind of a very cool story about you and God having a very real talk. Like, all right, there's a tornado here.
I'm out
And
in North Dakota. There's nowhere to hide. You just keep driving because you can't. I outran it. I actually stopped past across the interstate in my rearview mirror. It went from the southwest to the northeast.
oh my God.
And I knew where I was because I've driven that, I don't know, 45, 50 times, I think, in my lifetime between here and there. And I knew that I could get to Dickinson. And I got to Dickinson and had a very somber, prayer-filled moment. But one of the prayers in that was, all right, send me this godly man or I'm going back to Montana. And a week later we met.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
And I hope that I'm an answer to his prayer too. I think that we make a great partnership.
I'm sure you are.
We have a lot of things in common, so we've been able to learn from each other and teach each other. But we've also given each other the permission. We encourage each other to explore other interests separately as well. It's not as a slight to the other partner. It's just that I'm not a fisherwoman. You go right ahead and fish, honey. I might come paddle with you in the kayak, but I'm not a fisherwoman. He'll see me down in the sewing room quilting. And say, what you doing? I'm just sewing. Okay, great. Have fun. So we've learned that we need to, that's a little bit of self-care and a little bit of self-interest, but not at the expense of the other. And I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
For all people to realize that's, I think that, I guess that might have been part of the problem with the first marriage was that we didn't allow each other that kind of space or that kind of self-development.
Which is, yes, so vital to be able to fill your own buckets in your own baskets in your own ways. And yeah, I'm not a deer hunter. I'd rather scrapbook, but I lovingly send my husband to deer camp. And I think that's really powerful too, for men to have their own friends and women to have their own friends and social circles and relationships, because we do communicate differently and we do get fed differently. And giving each other the space to be contentedly, apart.
But then we come back together even stronger. And that's what I found. I even found that with family members, that if there's been an estrangement, that you have to give each other the grace and the space again, but then forgive, love, and hopefully if it's meant to come back together again, it will. And there's been a lot of healing in the last couple of years, even with knowing what I know and being as hopeful as I've. And in today's world, it's so scary. Our country's in trouble. There are just so many different factions that are going on. And I'm hopeful.
That is extraordinary, Deb.
After what I've been through, how can I not be hopeful?
Yeah, after what you've been through. And that might be a lovely place to end it, to just encourage people to stay hopeful in whatever circumstance they're dealing with.
Absolutely.
And Deb, would you be okay if I shared your information if somebody's dealing with long COVID?
Absolutely.
Or some health struggles, or perhaps they just want to reach out to you and ask you some advice? Is that okay?
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to. Again, I'm a person of service.
Yes.
And I don't have all the answers, but I can certainly share my experiences and encourage others to be their best advocate, to believe in the power of prayer and accept the power of prayer, and to not lose hope.
I love it. Thank you for being on this podcast, Deb.
You're welcome. Thank you.